The elders said he was broken, paralyzed, helpless. They wheeled him to the altar like a punishment she was meant to endure. On their wedding night, he looked at her and said the last thing she expected. "You may have the bedroom. I will remain here." She had braced herself for the worst, but not for kindness from a man the whole kingdom had written off. He didn't touch her, didn't demand. He gave her the one thing no one else ever had, a choice. She should have been relieved. Instead, she couldn't stop thinking about the way his hands gripped that wheelchair, like weapons, not support. The way his eyes tracked her every movement with a sharpness no broken man should possess. Then one night, she said the words that changed everything. "You can walk." He went still, and for the first time the Alpha King looked afraid. Not of his enemies, but of the woman who saw straight through him. What she didn't know was that behind the walls of that castle, his own beta was already sharpening the blade meant for both their backs. The stone corridor stretched endlessly before Hana Bridges, each footstep echoing against walls that had witnessed countless pack rituals. Tonight, those walls would witness her sacrifice. Elder Gregory Mills walked to her left, his weathered face unreadable in the flickering torchlight. Elder Gerald Conway matched his pace on her right. Their synchronized movements practiced, rehearsed. They had done this before. Not with her, perhaps, but with other women deemed useful enough to solve political problems. "The Alpha King expects obedience," Gregory said, his voice low and measured. "Nothing more, nothing less. Do not expect warmth," Gerald added, as though reciting from a script he had memorized long ago. Hana kept her eyes forward, her spine straight. Inside her chest, her wolf circled restlessly, sensing the wrongness of this arrangement. But outwardly, she remained calm, composed. They expected tears or protests, and she would give them neither. "Do not expect kindness," Gregory continued. "Alpha Coulson Turlow is not known for gentleness, and do not expect a husband in the traditional sense," Gerald finished. The words settled over her like stones, each one weighing her down. But Hana had learned long ago that survival meant endurance. Strength was not always loud or visible. Sometimes it was simply the ability to keep breathing when everything inside you wanted to stop. They turned a corner, and the corridor widened. Tapestries depicting ancient pack victories lined the walls, faded reds and golds catching the torchlight. Hana studied them as she walked, memorizing details. Knowledge was power, even small knowledge. Especially small knowledge. "You understand why you were chosen?" Gregory said. It was not a question. Hana understood perfectly. She was expendable. Her family held no significant rank within the pack hierarchy. She had no powerful allies, no influential connections. When the elders needed someone to bind their broken Alpha King, someone who would not complain or cause trouble, her name had risen to the top of a very short list. "The Alpha King requires a Luna," Gerald explained, though she had not asked. "The pack requires stability. You will provide both. By existing," Gregory clarified. "By standing beside him. By asking no questions." Hana's fingers tightened briefly at her sides before she forced them to relax. Anger was useless here. These men had already made their decision. Her feelings about that decision mattered less than dust. "There are rumors," Gerald said carefully, "about the Alpha King's condition. His injuries from the ambush were severe," Gregory added. "He cannot walk, cannot fight as he once did, cannot rule without help," Hana thought, completing the sentence they had not spoken aloud. That was why they needed her. A compliant Luna who would stand where she was told, speak when instructed, and never challenge the elders who truly held power. She was not being honored tonight. She was being used. The realization crystallized inside her, sharp and clear. But Hana had survived worse than being used. She would survive this too. They reached a set of massive wooden doors carved with wolves in mid-hunt. 2 guards stood at attention, their faces carefully blank. They had heard the rumors too. Everyone had heard the rumors. Alpha Coulson Turlow, the feared warrior who had unified 3 territories through strength and strategy, now confined to a wheelchair. powerless, dependent, broken. The elders had not told her to pity him, Hannah noticed. They had warned her not to expect warmth or kindness, but they had said nothing about sympathy. Perhaps they knew pity would be wasted on a man like Coulson Turlough, or perhaps they feared what he might do if he sensed it. Gregory nodded to the guards. One of them stepped forward, gripping the iron handles. "Remember," Gerald said quietly, his breath warm against her ear. "You represent the pack now. Your actions reflect on all of us." The weight of responsibility settled across her shoulders like a cloak. But beneath that weight, Hannah felt something else stirring. Curiosity. After all the warnings and whispered rumors, she was finally about to meet the man everyone feared. The doors swung open. The mating chamber was vast, far larger than Hannah had expected. Candlelight flickered from dozens of iron sconces, casting dancing shadows across stone walls. A massive hearth dominated the far wall, flames crackling softly. Rich tapestries hung between the sconces, deep crimsons and midnight blues that absorbed the light. And there, positioned near the hearth, sat Alpha Coulson Turlough in his wheelchair. Hannah's breath caught, though not for the reasons anyone might have expected. He was broad-shouldered, his frame still powerful despite the chair. Dark hair fell across his forehead, longer than military precision would normally allow. His hands rested on the armrests, fingers relaxed but somehow ready, and his eyes, when they lifted to meet hers, were sharp enough to cut. Not broken, Hannah thought immediately. Whatever else he might be, Coulson Turlough was not broken. He studied her with the same intensity she had been using to study the corridor tapestries, assessing, cataloging, drawing conclusions from posture and breathing and the tiny muscles around her eyes. Hannah stood perfectly still and let him look. She had nothing to hide, nothing to prove. "Alpha Coulson Turlough," Gregory began, stepping forward with the formal cadence of ritual. "We present to you Hannah Bridges, chosen by the Council of Elders to serve as your Luna and mate." The words felt hollow, stripped of any real meaning. Hannah kept her gaze steady on Coulson's face, watching for his reaction. He showed nothing. No pleasure, no disappointment, no anger. Just that same controlled assessment. "The bonding ceremony will be brief," Gerald continued. "As per pack tradition, the vows will be witnessed by the elders and sealed by blood oath." Coulson's eyes never left Hannah's face. She felt exposed under that gaze, but also strangely seen. He was not looking at her dress or her body, or the way she had styled her hair. He was looking at her, the person beneath the surface. It should have made her uncomfortable. Instead, it made her curious. "Hannah Bridges," Gregory prompted. "Step forward." She moved across the stone floor, her footsteps silent. The elders had dressed her in a traditional mating gown, pale silver fabric that caught the candlelight. It was beautiful and completely impersonal, chosen by strangers for a ceremony that had nothing to do with love. She stopped 3 paces from the wheelchair, close enough to see the amber flecks in Coulson's dark eyes, far enough to maintain appropriate distance. "Do you accept this bond?" Gregory asked her. "Do you swear to serve as Luna to Alpha Coulson Turlough, to stand beside him in strength and in weakness, to honor the pack above all else?" The words were a trap disguised as tradition. If she said yes, she would be bound. If she said no, she would be punished. The elders had made certain she understood that before ever entering this corridor. But as Hannah looked at Coulson Turlough, really looked at him, she realized something the elders had missed. He was not asking her to say yes. His expression held no expectation, no demand, just waiting. "I accept," Hannah said clearly. Something flickered in Coulson's eyes, too quick to name, but there nonetheless. "Alpha Coulson Turlough," Gerald said. "Do you accept Hannah Bridges as your mate and Luna, to stand beside you in strength and in weakness, to honor the bond above all else?" Coulson's gaze remained locked on Hannah's face. When he spoke, his voice was deeper than she had expected, rough from disuse or perhaps from screaming during whatever ambush had put him in that chair. "I accept." 2 words, but they resonated through the chamber like a bell, final and binding. Gregory produced a ceremonial blade, silver and ancient. "Blood to blood," he intoned. "Wolf to wolf. The bond is sealed." Hannah extended her palm, barely flinching as the blade sliced a thin line across her skin. Blood welled immediately, bright red against her pale skin. Coulson lifted his hand from the armrest. For a moment, she thought he might not be able to hold it steady. But his hand did not shake, as Gregory cut an identical line across his palm. "Join hands," Gerald instructed. Hannah stepped closer, close enough now to smell wood smoke and something darker, more masculine. She pressed her bleeding palm against Coulson's, feeling the warmth of his skin, the calluses that spoke of weapons training long before any wheelchair. Heat flared where their blood mingled, the pack bond snapping into place with physical force. Hannah gasped, feeling his wolf brush against hers, powerful and controlled and utterly dominant. But he did not force the connection, did not overwhelm her with his strength. He simply allowed the bond to form, natural and inevitable. "The bond is sealed," Gregory and Gerald said in unison, witnessed and accepted. They stepped back, their duty completed. Hannah became aware of other presences in the chamber. Pack members gathered in the shadows to witness this union. She recognized Elder Wesley Brock near the far wall, his expression calculating. Beta Jeremy Haskins stood beside him, watching Coulson with something that looked almost like anticipation. Hannah filed those observations away, still holding Coulson's hand. The bleeding had already stopped, the wound sealing with supernatural speed. "You may release her hand, Alpha," Gregory said quietly. Coulson's fingers tightened briefly against hers before he let go. Not possessive, just acknowledging. "The elders will leave you now," Gerald announced. "The mating chamber is yours." Panic flickered through Hannah's chest, quickly suppressed. She had known this moment was coming, had prepared herself mentally for what would happen once they were alone. The elders filed out, taking their witnesses with them. The massive doors closed with a heavy thud, and suddenly the vast chamber felt far too small. Hannah stood motionless, waiting. Coulson had not moved from his position near the hearth. He watched her with that same sharp intensity, silent and assessing. The silence stretched. Hannah had expected commands or instructions, some indication of what he wanted from her. But Coulson simply waited, as though he had all the time in the world. Finally, unable to bear the quiet any longer, Hannah spoke. "What do you require of me, Alpha?" His head tilted slightly. "What did they tell you to expect?" The question caught her off guard. "They told me not to expect warmth, or kindness, or normalcy." "Did they tell you to be afraid?" "No," Hannah admitted. "They told me to be obedient." Something that might have been amusement crossed his face, there and gone too quickly to be certain. "Are you obedient?" Hannah considered lying, considered giving him the answer he probably wanted to hear. But something about his expression made her choose honesty instead. "When it serves me," she said. Coulson's lips curved, not quite a smile but close. "Good." He wheeled himself slightly closer to the fire, gesturing to a chair positioned nearby. "Sit." Hannah moved to the chair, lowering herself carefully. The mating gown pooled around her legs, silver fabric catching the firelight. She folded her hands in her lap, waiting. "You are not what I expected," Coulson said after a moment. "What did you expect?" "Someone weaker. Someone who would cry. Would you have preferred that?" "No." He said it simply, without elaboration. Hannah studied him in the firelight, noting the tension in his shoulders despite his relaxed posture. He held himself like a warrior forced into stillness, every muscle ready to move even though movement was supposedly impossible. "They say you were ambushed," Hannah said carefully. "6 months ago. They say many things. Is it true? That I was ambushed?" "Yes." He paused. "That I was injured?" "Yes. But not broken," Hannah thought. "Never broken. The elders chose me because I have no power," she said, making it a statement rather than a question. "The elders chose you because you were expendable," Coulson corrected. There is a difference. The bluntness should have stung. Instead, Hannah found it refreshing. At least he was honest. "And you?" she asked. "Did you have any say in their choice?" Coulson's gaze sharpened. "What do you think?" Hannah thought about the elders' careful words, their rehearsed warnings. She thought about Beta Haskins watching Coulson with barely concealed eagerness, about Elder Brock's calculating expression. "I think," she said slowly, "that they gave you a list of acceptable candidates, and I think you chose the one they expected you to choose. The quiet one who would not cause trouble." "You think I am weak," Coulson said, not angry, just observing. "No," Hannah said honestly. "I think you are careful." Silence fell again, but it felt different now, less awkward, more contemplative. "You may have the bedroom," Coulson said eventually, gesturing toward a door on the far side of the chamber. "I will remain here." Hannah blinked. "We are not—" "No," he said firmly. "Not tonight." Relief and confusion warred inside her. She had braced herself for obligation, for duty performed without desire. But Coulson was offering her space, privacy, choice. "Why?" she asked. His eyes met hers, and for just a moment, she saw something beneath the careful control, something that looked almost like respect. "Because you deserve better than a wedding night built on coercion," he said quietly. Hannah's throat tightened. She stood slowly, suddenly desperate to escape before emotion overwhelmed her composure. "Thank you," she managed. She crossed to the bedroom door, her hand on the iron handle before Coulson spoke again. "Hannah," she turned. "They will ask," he said. "Tomorrow, whether I claimed you." Hannah understood immediately. "What should I tell them?" "Tell them whatever you wish," Coulson said. "But know that I will support whatever story you choose." She nodded, something shifting inside her chest. Not affection, not yet, but recognition of something unexpected. Honor in a situation designed to strip away dignity. Hannah slipped into the bedroom and closed the door behind her, leaning against it as her carefully maintained composure finally cracked. In the main chamber, Coulson Turlow sat in his wheelchair and stared into the flames, his expression unreadable. And in the shadows near the far wall, where neither of them could see, Beta Jeremy Haskins smiled. Morning arrived too early, sunlight streaming through windows Hannah had not noticed the night before. She dressed carefully in clothes someone had laid out while she slept, a simple gown in deep blue that marked her new status as Luna, without being ostentatious. When she emerged from the bedroom, Coulson was already awake, positioned near the hearth where he had been the night before. Had he slept at all? Or had he simply remained there all night, watching the flames? "Good morning," Hannah said, uncertain of protocol. Coulson's eyes tracked her movement across the room. "There is breakfast," he said, gesturing to a table near the windows. Fresh bread, cheese, fruits she did not recognize, far more than two people could eat. Hannah selected a piece of bread and some cheese, acutely aware of Coulson watching her every movement. "You do not need to stand," he said. Hannah lowered herself into a chair, grateful. "Thank you." He said nothing more, simply watched as she ate. The silence should have been uncomfortable, but Hannah found herself settling into it. Coulson did not fill empty air with meaningless words. When he spoke, it mattered. A knock at the door interrupted the quiet. "Enter," Coulson called. Elder Wesley Brock stepped inside, his expression carefully neutral. "Alpha, Luna." He nodded to each of them. "I trust the night was acceptable?" Hannah felt Coulson's gaze shift to her, giving her the choice he had promised. She set down her bread and met Brock's eyes steadily. "The Alpha King was generous," she said, carefully neutral, revealing nothing. Brock's expression flickered with something that might have been frustration before smoothing over again. "Excellent. The pack will be pleased to hear the bond is secure." "Was there doubt?" Coulson asked, his voice mild. "Of course not, Alpha," Brock said quickly. "Too quickly. But the pack likes confirmation of these things. Tradition." "Of course," Coulson agreed. "Tradition." The word held an edge Hannah could not quite identify. Brock heard it too, straightening slightly. "I will leave you to your breakfast," he said, backing toward the door. "Beta Haskins will arrive shortly to discuss pack business." After he left, Hannah looked at Coulson. "He wanted me to confirm something specific." "Yes. What would have happened if I had told him nothing occurred?" Coulson's expression did not change. "The elders would have questioned my ability to fulfill my duties as Alpha." Understanding dawned. They had not chosen her randomly. They had chosen her specifically because they believed Coulson could not or would not claim her. Proof of weakness they could use to justify removing him from power. "I see," Hannah said quietly. "Do you?" Coulson asked. Hannah met his gaze. "They are waiting for you to fail." "Yes. How long have they been waiting?" "Since the ambush." Hannah processed this, connecting pieces the elders had deliberately left scattered. "They think the wheelchair makes you weak." "They hope it makes me weak," Coulson corrected. "There is a difference." Before Hannah could respond, another knock sounded. Beta Jeremy Haskins entered without waiting for permission, his smile sharp and practiced. "Alpha," he said, nodding to Coulson. His gaze slid to Hannah, lingering too long. "Luna, how lovely you look this morning." Hannah inclined her head, saying nothing. "I have the weekly reports," Haskins continued, producing a stack of papers. "Border patrols report no incidents. The Western Territory is secure." "And the Eastern?" Coulson asked. "Some minor disputes over hunting grounds. Nothing the pack captains cannot handle." "I want a full report by tomorrow," Coulson said. Haskins's smile tightened. "Is that truly necessary, Alpha? These are routine matters. Perhaps you should focus on more important concerns." His gaze flickered meaningfully toward Hannah. "I will decide what requires my focus," Coulson said, his voice quiet but absolute. Haskins's jaw tightened. "Of course, Alpha. I meant no offense." "Then take no offense when I remind you that I am still capable of ruling this pack." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Haskins straightened, his expression carefully blank. "No one questions that, Alpha." "Good," Coulson said. "Then the Eastern Territory report will be on my desk by tomorrow evening." After Haskins left, Hannah studied Coulson's profile. His expression revealed nothing, but she could feel tension radiating from him through their new bond. "He does not believe you are capable," she said quietly. "No, but you allow him to think that." Coulson's gaze shifted to her, sharp and assessing. "You are observant. It is how I survive." Something passed between them, an understanding built on mutual recognition. They were both players in a game neither had chosen, using the only weapons available to them. The days developed a rhythm. Coulson conducted pack business from the wheelchair, his voice calm and measured, even when dealing with obviously hostile council members. Hannah attended where required, standing silently beside him, watching everything. She noticed how Elder Gregory Mills always positioned himself to Coulson's left, the side with easier access to vulnerable organs. How Elder Gerald Conway asked innocuous questions designed to test Coulson's memory and mental acuity. How Beta Haskins smiled too widely whenever Coulson showed the slightest hesitation, and she noticed how Coulson never truly hesitated. He might pause before answering, might appear to consider options, but his decisions were always swift and certain once made. He was not weak. He was not confused. He was playing a role, and doing it so convincingly that everyone except Hannah believed it. The question was why. At night, they maintained their separate spaces. Coulson remained in the main chamber near the hearth. Hannah retreated to the bedroom, though she found herself lying awake more often than not, listening to the sounds of him moving in the other room. Sometimes she heard the wheelchair creak as he shifted position. Sometimes she heard nothing at all, as though he sat perfectly still for hours, thinking or planning or simply waiting. On the fifth night, Hannah emerged from the bedroom to find him staring into the dying fire. She had intended to fetch water, but something about his posture stopped her. "Cannot sleep?" she asked quietly. Coulson did not turn. "No." Hannah moved closer, drawn by something she could not name. "Does it hurt? Your injuries?" Sometimes, she lowered herself into the chair she had occupied on their wedding night, tucking her nightgown around her legs. Will you tell me what happened during the ambush? Why do you want to know? Because everyone whispers about it, but no one says the truth. Coulson's lips curved slightly. And you think I will tell you the truth? I think you might, Hannah said honestly, because I have not lied to you. He considered this, his gaze returning to the flames. There were 7 of them, rogues, or so it appeared. They attacked during a routine border patrol. 7 against 1, 7 against 3. My personal guards died protecting me. Hannah heard the weight in those words. Not just grief, but guilt. You survived, she said. Yes, but the attack damaged my spine. He paused. Or so the healers claimed. Hannah's breath caught. Claimed? Coulson looked at her then, his expression unreadable. You are very clever, Hannah Bridges. You can walk, she said, making it a statement rather than a question. Can I? I do not know, Hannah admitted. But I know you are not as helpless as you appear. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Hannah waited, barely breathing, wondering if she had pushed too far. Finally, Coulson spoke. If you believed I was deceiving the pack, what would you do? That depends, Hannah said carefully, on why you were deceiving them. And if I said it was to protect myself, then I would ask who you needed protection from. Coulson's expression shifted, something almost like approval crossing his features. You would make a dangerous enemy, Luna. I would prefer to be an ally. Would you? He studied her intently. Even knowing I have used you as part of this deception? Hannah's chest tightened, but she kept her voice steady. You gave me a choice. On our wedding night. That is more than anyone else has offered. A choice within a prison is still a prison. Yes, Hannah agreed. But you acknowledged the bars. That matters. Coulson wheeled himself slightly closer, his gaze never leaving her face. What do you want, Hannah? Truly? The question caught her unprepared. No one had asked her what she wanted. Not the elders, not her family, not even Coulson, until this moment. I want to understand, she said finally. I want to know what game we are playing and why, because I cannot help you if I do not know the rules. Who said I want your help? You do, Hannah said with certainty. Otherwise you would not be testing me, watching me, trying to decide if you can trust me. Something dangerous flickered in Coulson's eyes. And can I? Hannah held his gaze. Ask me again when you have decided to trust yourself first. She stood, suddenly aware of how close they had moved to each other. The firelight cast shadows across Coulson's features, making him appear both younger and infinitely older. Good night, Alpha, she said softly. Hannah, she paused. Thank you, he said, for not lying. Hannah nodded and retreated to the bedroom, her heart racing. Behind her, Coulson Turlow sat in his wheelchair and stared into the flames, his expression thoughtful. When she woke the next morning, breakfast was already waiting. But this time, when she emerged from the bedroom, Coulson greeted her with something new, a question. Do you play chess, Luna? Hannah blinked. Some. My father taught me before he died. Good, Coulson said. I need a partner who will not let me win simply because I cannot walk to fetch my own pieces. And despite everything, despite the deception and the political machinations and the forced marriage that had brought them together, Hannah smiled. I never let anyone win, she said. Coulson's answering smile was genuine. I know. The chess games became ritual. Every evening after dinner, Hannah would set up the board, while Coulson positioned his wheelchair across from her. They played in concentrated silence. The only sounds the soft click of pieces against marble and the crackling of the hearth fire. Hannah won the first game. Coulson's eyebrows had risen in genuine surprise when she called checkmate, her queen and knight working in tandem to trap his king. You are better than you claimed, he said. I said I played some, Hannah replied. I never said I played poorly. His laugh was unexpected, rough and genuine. The sound did something strange to her chest. She lost the second game, but only barely. Coulson's strategy was aggressive where hers was defensive. overwhelming where she preferred subtlety. Watching him play revealed more about his mind than any conversation could have. "You think 3 moves ahead," she observed as he claimed her rook. "4, usually," Coulson corrected. "But you adapt quickly. It keeps me honest." The third game remained unfinished when Elder Gregory Mills arrived for a late-night meeting. Hannah excused herself, but Coulson caught her wrist as she passed his chair. "Stay," he said quietly. It was not a request, but it was not quite a command either. Hannah recognized it as something else entirely, an offering of trust she had not earned yet. She resumed her seat as Gregory entered, his expression pinching slightly when he saw her. "Alpha," he said, nodding stiffly. "I did not realize the Luna would be present." "She is my mate," Coulson said. "Where else would she be?" Gregory's jaw tightened, but he produced a folder from beneath his arm. "The northern border reports unusual activity. Rogues gathering in numbers we have not seen since before your father's reign." "How many?" Coulson asked. "At least 20, possibly more." Hannah watched Coulson's expression remain carefully neutral, but she felt tension spike through their bond. 20 rogues was not a scouting party. It was an invasion force. "Recommendations?" Coulson asked. "Beta Haskins suggests we increase patrols and wait to see their intentions." "And you?" Gregory hesitated, glancing at Hannah before answering. "I suggest we strike first. Show strength before they can organize." "You suggest I lead an attack from a wheelchair?" Coulson's tone was mild, almost curious. "I suggest you send your beta and war captains," Gregory said carefully. "As any wise alpha would do." "As any weak alpha would do," Coulson corrected. "I did not say that, Alpha, but you thought it." The tension in the room crystallized. Hannah remained perfectly still, barely breathing. "What does the Luna think?" Coulson asked suddenly. Both Hannah and Gregory turned to stare at him. Hannah recovered first. "I think 20 rogues gathering at our border is either a threat or a distraction," she said carefully. "The question is which?" Gregory's expression darkened. "With all respect, Luna, military strategy is not—" "She is right," Coulson interrupted. 20 rogues could attack, but they would not win. They know that. So either they are testing our defenses, or someone wants our attention focused north while something else happens elsewhere. Gregory's face paled slightly. "You think someone in the pack is working with rogues?" "I think we have traitors in our midst," Coulson said flatly. "The ambush 6 months ago proved that. We investigated." "You investigated and found nothing," Coulson said. "Because the traitors are clever enough to hide, but they are not patient enough to wait forever." Silence fell. Hannah watched Gregory's fingers tighten on his folder, knuckles whitening. "What would you have me do?" Gregory asked finally. "Double the patrols on all borders, not just north. And inform Beta Haskins that I want detailed reports of every pack member who has left our territory in the past 3 months. That will take days to compile. Then he should start immediately." After Gregory left, Hannah studied Coulson's profile. "You suspect Haskins." "I suspect everyone." "Even me?" Coulson turned to look at her, his gaze intense. "Especially you." The words should have hurt. Instead, Hannah found them oddly reassuring. At least he was honest. "What can I do to earn your trust?" she asked. "Survive," Coulson said simply. "Anyone who wants me dead will eventually target you as well. If you are still alive in 6 months, I will know you are either very skilled or very innocent. And if I am neither, then I will deal with you accordingly." Hannah should have been afraid. Any rational person would have been afraid. But sitting there in the firelight, studying the man everyone believed was broken, Hannah felt something else entirely: fascination. The days grew warmer as spring settled over the territory. Hannah began taking morning walks through the palace gardens, always aware of the guards who shadowed her movements. She was Luna now, which meant she was both protected and watched at all times. She did not mind. The gardens were beautiful, and the guards kept their distance. It gave her space to think, to process the complexity of her new life. On the 7th morning, she found Coulson already in the garden, his wheelchair positioned near a fountain. He did not look surprised to see her. You come here often, Hana observed, settling onto a nearby bench. The healers say fresh air is good for recovery. His tone suggested what he thought of the healers' opinions. Do you want to recover? The question was dangerous, probing at truths neither of them had spoken aloud. Coulson considered her for a long moment before answering. I want to survive, he said. Recovery is secondary. Hana understood. As long as he appeared broken, his enemies would underestimate him. But the wheelchair was also a prison, limiting his movements, forcing him to rely on others who might betray him. It must be frustrating, she said quietly. What must be? Pretending to be helpless when you are not. Coulson's expression sharpened. Careful, Luna. Why? Hana met his gaze. We are alone. The guards are too far away to hear, and I already know the truth. You know nothing. I know you move differently when you think no one is watching, Hana said. I know your hands are too strong for someone who cannot use his legs. I know you grip the wheelchair armrests like they are weapons, not support. Silence stretched between them. A bird sang somewhere in the flowering trees. Water trickled musically in the fountain. If you are wrong, Coulson said finally, you are insulting your alpha by suggesting he is deceptive. And if I am right, then you are far too observant for your own safety. Hana leaned forward slightly. I will keep your secret, whatever it is, but I will not pretend not to see the truth. Why would you protect me? Because we are bound, Hana said simply. And because I would rather have you as an ally than an enemy. Coulson studied her intently, his dark eyes missing nothing. Hana felt exposed under that gaze, but she did not look away. You are either very brave or very foolish, he said. Cannot I be both? His lips curved slightly. Yes, I suppose you can. He wheeled himself closer, closing the distance between them. Close enough that Hana could see the amber flecks in his eyes, the faint scar along his jaw from some old injury. If I could walk, he said quietly. What would you do? Hana's breath caught. What do you mean? If I stood right now, here in this garden where only you would see, what would you do? Her heart hammered against her ribs. I would ask why you had waited so long to tell me, and if I said it was necessary, then I would believe you. Coulson's gaze dropped to her mouth, lingered there for a heartbeat, then returned to her eyes. You should not trust me so easily. I do not trust easily, Hana corrected, but I trust what I see. And I see a man who gave me choices when no one else did. That matters. Something shifted in Coulson's expression, heat replacing calculation. Hana felt it echo through their bond, a pulse of desire so strong it stole her breath. Hana, he said, his voice rougher. You should return to the palace. Why? Because I am trying to be honorable, and you are making that extremely difficult. Understanding flooded through her. He wanted her, had wanted her perhaps, since that first night, but he had held back, giving her space, refusing to use their bond as an excuse to take what had not been freely offered. Hana stood slowly, her pulse racing. She took one step closer to his wheelchair, then another, until she stood within arm's reach. What if I do not want you to be honorable? She asked softly. Coulson's hands tightened on the armrests, knuckles whitening. Do not test me. I am not testing. I am asking. You do not know what you are asking for. Then show me. The words hung between them, charged and dangerous. Hana watched emotions flicker across Coulson's face. Desire, restraint, frustration, need. Not here, he said finally, his voice strained. Not like this. Disappointment warred with respect in Hana's chest. She nodded, stepping back. Forgive me, she said. I overstepped. No, Coulson said sharply. You did not overstep. But when I touch you, Hana, it will not be in a garden where anyone might see. It will not be rushed or furtive or anything less than what you deserve. Her breath stuttered. When you are ready, truly ready. Not because you feel obligated or curious or bored. And if I said I was ready now, I would say you are lying to yourself. The observation stung because it was partially true. Hana was drawn to Coulson, fascinated by him, attracted to him. But was she ready for the intimacy he was describing? The vulnerability it would require? She did not know. "You are right," she admitted quietly. Coulson's expression softened slightly. "I have time, Hannah. We both have time." But as she walked back toward the palace, Hannah wondered if that was true. The rogues gathering at their borders, the traitors hiding in their pack, the elders circling like vultures waiting for weakness to exploit. Time was the one thing they might not have. That night, she lay awake in her bedroom, acutely aware of Coulson's presence in the main chamber. She heard him moving, the soft creak of the wheelchair, the rustle of papers as he worked late into the night. She pressed her hand against the door, feeling the bond hum between them. On the other side, she knew he felt it too. Knew he was probably staring at that same door, fighting the same desire. The waiting would drive them both mad. But perhaps, Hannah thought, madness was simply another kind of honesty. The summons came 3 weeks after their wedding. Elder Gerald Conway delivered it personally, his expression carefully neutral. "The pact requires confirmation of the mating bond," he said, standing in the main chamber while Hannah prepared tea nearby. "Tradition dictates that Luna and Alpha complete the bonding ritual within 1 lunar cycle." Hannah's hands stilled on the teapot. 1 lunar cycle, 4 weeks. They had 1 week left. "The pact's requirements are noted," Coulson said, his voice revealing nothing. "The ceremony will take place in 7 days," Gerald continued. "Elder Brock and I will witness the preparation. Beta Haskins will confirm completion the following morning." Hannah set down the teapot carefully, fighting to keep her expression neutral. They would be watching, waiting for proof that Coulson could not or would not fulfill his duties as Alpha. After Gerald left, silence filled the chamber. Hannah could feel Coulson's gaze on her, but she kept her attention focused on pouring tea with steady hands. "You are angry," Coulson observed. "I am frustrated," Hannah corrected. "There is a difference." "Tell me." She turned to face him, abandoning pretense. "They are using our intimacy as a political weapon, forcing us into a moment that should be private, making it a spectacle for their judgment." "Yes. Does that not anger you? I expected nothing less from them." Hannah crossed to where he sat, looking down into his dark eyes. "Do you want this? Truly? Or are we simply performing for an audience that wants you to fail?" Coulson's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering beneath the control. "What I want and what is necessary are rarely the same thing. That is not an answer. It is the only answer I can give you right now." Hannah knelt beside his wheelchair, bringing them to eye level. "Then let me ask differently. If we were not Alpha and Luna, if there were no pack politics or watching elders, would you want me?" Coulson's hand rose, hovering near her face for a heartbeat before he allowed himself to touch her cheek. His palm was warm, slightly rough with calluses. "Yes," he said simply. "From the moment you walked into this chamber and did not flinch from my chair. From the first time you beat me at chess. From every night I have lain awake knowing you were behind that door, wanting to go to you and forcing myself to wait." Hannah's breath caught. "Why did you wait? Because you deserve a choice, even if the circumstances do not allow one." She covered his hand with hers, pressing it more firmly against her cheek. "I choose you. You barely know me." "I know enough," Hannah said. "I know you are honest when it would be easier to lie. I know you gave me space when you could have demanded closeness. I know you are playing a dangerous game to protect yourself and possibly this entire pack. That is enough for me." Coulson's thumb brushed her cheekbone, the touch sending heat through her entire body. "You terrify me." "Good," Hannah said softly. "You terrify me too." His laugh was quiet, almost painful. "We are quite the pair." "Yes," Hannah agreed. "We are." The 7 days passed in a blur of preparation. Palace servants delivered new gowns to Hannah's chambers, each more elaborate than the last. She chose the simplest, a dress of deep silver that reminded her of moonlight on water. Coulson conducted his usual business, showing no sign of concern or anticipation. But Hannah felt the tension building through their bond, a tightening coil of desire and dread and determination. On the final evening, Elder Brock arrived to oversee the preparation of the mating chamber. Fresh candles were lit, new linens placed on the massive bed that dominated one corner. Herbs scattered across the floor to bless the union. Hannah watched from the doorway, her stomach tight with nerves she refused to show. "Everything is ready," Brock announced, his gaze sliding over her in a way that made her skin crawl. "The Alpha King will arrive within the hour. You should prepare yourself." After he left, Hannah closed the door and leaned against it, breathing deeply. She had known this moment was coming, had even, in recent days, wanted it. But the reality of political spectacle surrounding intimacy made her feel exposed and vulnerable. She dressed in the silver gown, leaving her hair loose as tradition dictated. Her hands shook slightly as she fastened the delicate clasps, and she forced herself to breathe slowly, centering her thoughts. She was doing this for herself as much as for Coulson, for the choice to be hers, regardless of who was watching or why. When the door opened, Hannah turned to find Coulson wheeling himself into the chamber. He had dressed formally, dark clothes that emphasized his broad shoulders and the sharp planes of his face. Their eyes met, and Hannah saw her own nervousness reflected back at her. "You are beautiful," Coulson said quietly. "You do not have to say that." "I know, but it is true." Hannah crossed to him, her bare feet silent on the stone floor. "Are you certain about this?" "I should be asking you that question. I asked first." Coulson reached for her hand, pulling her gently closer until she stood between his legs, his wheelchair positioned so she could see his face clearly. "I am certain that I want you," he said. "I am less certain that I deserve you. That is not your decision to make." "No," he agreed. "It is yours." Hannah looked down at their joined hands, gathering courage. "I need to know something first. Ask. When you touch me, will it be real? Or will you be thinking about the elders watching through our bond, waiting for proof of your strength or weakness?" Coulson's free hand rose to cup her face, tilting it until she met his gaze. "When I touch you, the only thing I will think about is you. The elders can wait in whatever hell they have created for themselves. This moment belongs to us." Relief flooded through her. "Promise me." "I promise." Hannah leaned down, closing the distance between them, and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, testing, asking permission. Coulson's hand tightened in her hair, deepening the kiss with controlled hunger. Heat blazed through their bond, amplifying sensation until Hannah gasped against his mouth. She felt his desire as acutely as her own, a feedback loop that made her dizzy with want. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Coulson's eyes had darkened to almost black. "Hannah," he said, his voice rough, "if we continue, I will not be able to stop. Then do not stop." She reached for the clasps of her gown with trembling fingers, loosening them one by one. The silver fabric slipped lower, revealing the curve of her shoulders, the line of her collarbone. Coulson's hands gripped the wheelchair armrests hard enough to make the metal creak. "You are killing me." "Good," Hannah said, echoing his earlier words. "We are quite the pair." She let the gown slip lower, fabric pooling around her waist. Coulson's gaze traveled over her exposed skin with an intensity that made her feel simultaneously vulnerable and powerful. "Come here," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Hannah stepped closer, and Coulson's hands rose to span her waist, pulling her down into his lap. The wheelchair tilted slightly under their combined weight, and for a moment, Hannah worried they might topple. But Coulson held her steady, one arm wrapped securely around her waist, the other hand tangling in her hair. "I need to tell you something," he said against her neck, his breath hot on her skin. "Now?" Hannah asked, distracted by the feel of his lips trailing across her throat. "Before we go further, you deserve to know." Something in his tone made Hannah pull back slightly, searching his face. "What is it?" Coulson's hand slid from her hair to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her lips. "The wheelchair. My injuries. Not everything the healers said was accurate." Hannah's heart hammered. "I know." "You know?" "I have known for weeks," Hannah admitted. "I told you. I see the truth. And you said nothing." It was not my truth to tell. Coulson stared at her, something shifting in his expression. Wonder, perhaps, or disbelief. Show me, Hannah whispered. Please, show me the truth. For a long moment, Coulson did not move. Then slowly, deliberately, he loosened his grip on her waist. Stand, he said quietly. Hannah slid from his lap, her pulse racing. She watched as Coulson's hands moved to the armrests, bracing himself. His jaw tightened, muscles flexing beneath his shirt, and then he stood. Slowly, powerfully, rising from the chair until he towered over her. Not broken, not weak, strong and whole and utterly capable. Hannah's breath stopped. One hand rose to press against his chest, feeling his heart racing beneath her palm. Solid, real, alive. You can walk, she breathed. Yes. How long? Since 3 weeks after the ambush. The damage healed faster than anyone expected. But you pretended. Because the men who attacked me are still out there, Coulson said, his hands settling on her waist, warm and sure. Because they wait for me to be truly vulnerable before they strike again. Because a king in a wheelchair is underestimated, and underestimation is a weapon. Hannah's mind raced, connecting pieces. The elders, they are part of it. I do not know for certain, but someone in my inner council betrayed me. And until I know who, I cannot afford to show strength, but you are showing me. Yes, Coulson said simply, because you deserve the truth, and because I cannot touch you, truly touch you, from that damned chair. His hands tightened on her waist, pulling her flush against him. Hannah gasped at the full contact, feeling the solid strength of his body, the heat radiating from his skin. You let me believe you were helpless, she said, anger and relief warring in her chest. I needed to know who would stay, Coulson replied. Who would stand beside a broken king, expecting nothing in return. You tested me. Yes. Hannah pulled back enough to meet his eyes, her own blazing. If you ever do that again, if you ever test my loyalty or make me prove my worth, I will leave. I do not care about pack politics or mating bonds or tradition. Do you understand? Coulson's expression shifted, respect replacing calculation. That is why I chose you. Because you would leave. Because you do not need me. You choose me. There is a difference. Yes, Hannah agreed, some of her anger fading. There is. He lowered his head, his forehead resting against hers. I am sorry for the deception, for making you part of a game you did not agree to play. You gave me choices when you could have taken them away, Hannah said. That matters more than the deception. Does it? Yes. Coulson's arms wrapped around her, crushing her against his chest. Hannah felt his heart racing, matching her own frantic rhythm. When he kissed her, it was nothing like the tentative exploration from before. This was possession, claiming, need stripped of all pretense. Hannah kissed him back just as fiercely, her hands tangling in his hair, pulling him closer even though there was no space left between them. The bond flared white-hot, sensation amplifying until she could not tell where her desire ended and his began. Bed, Coulson said against her mouth. Now. He lifted her easily, and Hannah wrapped her legs around his waist as he carried her across the chamber. The massive bed loomed before them, covered in pristine white linens and scattered herbs. Coulson laid her down carefully, following her down until his weight pressed her into the mattress. Hannah arched into him, desperate for more contact, more heat, more everything. Slowly, Coulson murmured, his lips trailing down her neck. I have waited weeks for this. I will not rush. Coulson, slowly, he repeated, and the command in his voice made her shiver. His hands learned her body with deliberate patience, mapping every curve, every sensitive spot that made her gasp. When he finally stripped away her gown completely, Hannah felt exposed and beautiful under his hungry gaze. Perfect, he breathed. You are absolutely perfect. Hannah reached for his shirt, tugging it free. Too many clothes. Coulson laughed, the sound rough and genuine. He pulled the shirt over his head, revealing a warrior's body marked by scars both old and new. Hana traced them with gentle fingers, feeling him shudder beneath her touch. "These are from the ambush," she said, fingers trailing across a particularly vicious scar along his ribs. "Yes, it must have been terrible. It was necessary," Coulson said. "It showed me who my true enemies were, and who your allies might be." "Yes." Hana pulled him down into another kiss, pouring everything she could not say into the contact. Gratitude for his honesty, desire for his touch, fear for what tomorrow might bring. Coulson responded with equal intensity, his control finally fracturing. Their coupling was fierce and tender by turns, a claiming that went both ways. When Hana cried out, it was not from pain but from overwhelming sensation. Pleasure so intense it bordered on agony. Afterwards, they lay tangled together, breathing hard, skin slick with sweat. Coulson's hand traced lazy patterns on her hip, his expression more relaxed than she had ever seen. "The elders will know," Hana said quietly. "Through the bond. They will know we completed the mating." "Let them know," Coulson replied. "Let them believe they forced me to prove myself. The truth is mine to keep." "Ours," Hana corrected. Coulson smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Ours." But even as she drifted toward sleep, safe in Coulson's arms, Hana could not shake the feeling that they had just painted a target on both their backs. The game was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. Morning arrived with soft gray light filtering through windows. Hana had not bothered to curtain the night before. She woke to find herself wrapped in Coulson's arms, his steady breathing indicating he still slept. For a moment, she simply watched him. In sleep, the careful control he maintained vanished, leaving him looking younger, almost vulnerable. Scars decorated his chest and shoulders, testaments to battles fought and survived. She traced one particularly vicious scar with gentle fingers, feeling the ridge of damaged tissue. Coulson's eyes opened, instantly alert despite having been asleep moments before. "Good morning," Hana said softly. His arms tightened around her. "Good morning." They lay in comfortable silence, neither eager to face whatever consequences their night had created. But eventually, reality intruded in the form of footsteps outside the chamber door. "The elders will want confirmation," Coulson said, his voice rough with sleep. "Let them wait." He smiled slightly. "You are developing a rebellious streak, I learned from my mate." The word settled between them, heavier now that intimacy had made it real. Mate. Not just a political arrangement or a forced bond, but an actual partnership. A sharp knock interrupted the moment. Coulson released Hana reluctantly, reaching for his clothes. She watched him move, still marveling at the easy strength he had hidden for so long. "You need to return to the chair," she said quietly. Before they enter, Coulson's expression darkened, but he nodded. The wheelchair sat near the hearth, where he had abandoned it the night before. He crossed to it, settling into the seat with practiced ease. And just like that, the illusion returned. Broken alpha, helpless king, exactly what everyone expected to see. "Enter," Coulson called. Beta Jeremy Haskins stepped into the chamber, his gaze immediately sweeping across the rumpled bed, the scattered herbs, Hana's hastily donned robe. His smile was sharp and calculating. "Alpha. Luna," he said, nodding to each of them. "I trust the night was satisfactory?" "Your concern is noted," Coulson said dryly. "The elders require confirmation," Haskins continued, his gaze lingering on Hana in a way that made her skin crawl. "Pack tradition demands." "The bond is complete," Hana interrupted, meeting his stare directly. "You may report that to the elders." Haskins's smile widened. "Of course, Luna, though I am certain they will want to verify through the bond itself." "Then let them verify," Coulson said, his voice quiet but absolute. "And remind them that my mating bond is none of their concern beyond its existence." Haskins's expression flickered with something that looked like frustration before smoothing over. "As you say, Alpha." After he left, Hana crossed to Coulson's chair. He wanted to see weakness. He always wants to see weakness. I have learned to disappoint him. Does he know about your ability to walk? No one knows except you, Coulson said, and it must remain that way. Hannah knelt beside the wheelchair, bringing them to eye level. I will keep your secret, but you cannot ask me to pretend when we are alone. I will not lie to you about what I see, what I feel. I would never ask you to lie. Good. She pressed a kiss to his jaw. Because I am terrible at it. The days following their mating took on new rhythm. In public, they maintained careful distance. Coulson in his wheelchair, Hannah standing respectfully beside him during pack meetings. But in private, everything changed. Coulson no longer slept in the main chamber. He came to bed with Hannah, holding her through the night, their bodies learning each other with increasing familiarity. Sometimes they made love with urgent intensity. Other times they simply talked, sharing pieces of themselves they had kept hidden. Hannah learned about Coulson's childhood, about a father who ruled through fear, and a mother who died trying to be gentle in a harsh world. She learned about the friends he had lost in battles, about the weight of leadership he had never wanted but could not abandon. In turn, she shared her own story. The parents who died when she was young, leaving her to navigate pack politics alone. The quiet strength she had developed to survive being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. You were never invisible to me, Coulson said one night, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. From that first moment in the mating chamber, I saw you. What did you see? Someone who refused to be broken. Someone who stood tall even when the entire world was trying to make her kneel. Hannah turned in his arms, pressing her face against his chest. I was terrified. I know, but you did not let them see it. That takes a different kind of courage. 3 weeks after their mating, Elder Wesley Brock requested a private meeting. Coulson received him in the main chamber, Hannah present as always, despite Brock's obvious displeasure. The northern border situation has escalated, Brock announced without preamble. The rogues have increased to nearly 30. They are building structures, establishing a permanent camp. Coulson's expression remained neutral. Recommendations? We must attack before they grow stronger. Beta Haskins has volunteered to lead the strike force. Has he? Coulson's tone was mild, almost curious. How convenient. Brock's jaw tightened. With all respect, Alpha, we cannot afford to wait. A show of strength is required. I agree, Coulson said calmly, which is why I will lead the attack myself. Silence crashed through the chamber. Brock stared at Coulson as though he had grown a second head. You cannot possibly, Brock started. Cannot what? Coulson interrupted. Lead my own pack? Defend my own territory? Or are you suggesting that a wheelchair makes me incompetent? Of course not, Alpha, but then the matter is settled. Inform Beta Haskins that I require a detailed battle plan by tomorrow evening. After Brock left, practically vibrating with suppressed frustration, Hannah looked at Coulson with concern. You cannot go to battle in a wheelchair, she said quietly. No, Coulson agreed. I cannot. Then what are you planning? He met her gaze, something fierce and determined burning in his eyes. I am planning to force my enemies into the open. They have been patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, but 30 rogues at our border is not a natural occurrence. Someone is orchestrating this, pulling strings, trying to create a situation where I have no choice but to reveal my deception or appear completely ineffective. Understanding dawned. You think the elders arranged this? Not all of them. But Brock and Haskins have been too eager, too quick, with solutions that conveniently exclude me from leadership. So you will go to battle and force them to either attack you directly or reveal their involvement with the rogues. Yes. Hannah's chest tightened with fear. You could die. I have been living on borrowed time since the ambush, Coulson said. Better to die fighting than to slowly suffocate under their schemes. No, Hannah said sharply. You do not get to make that choice alone. Hannah, I am your mate, she interrupted. You're Luna. What affects you affects me. If you are planning to walk into a potential death trap, I have the right to know the full plan. Coulson studied her intently. You want the truth? Always. He wheeled himself closer, taking her hands in his. The truth is that I have been gathering evidence for months. Beta Haskins has been in contact with rogue packs, offering them territory in exchange for assistance in removing me. Elder Brock has been redirecting pack resources, building his own power base in preparation for a leadership challenge. Hana's blood ran cold. They mean to kill you. They mean to make it look like I died honorably in battle, defending the pack. Then Brock will assume leadership with Haskins as his beta, and they will carve up the territory between them. You have proof? Enough to convict them in front of the pack council. But I need them to move first, to commit fully to their plan. Otherwise, they will simply deny everything and wait for another opportunity. So you are using yourself as bait. Yes. Hana pulled her hands free, pacing across the chamber. Anger and fear warred inside her chest, making it hard to breathe. You should have told me, she said finally. I am telling you now. Now, when you have already decided everything. When my input is irrelevant. Coulson's expression hardened. Your input is never irrelevant. Then change the plan, Hana demanded. Find another way. Do not throw your life away on some dramatic gesture designed to expose traitors who might just kill you before you can reveal their crimes. There is no other way. There is always another way. Silence fell, heavy and painful. Hana turned away, fighting tears she refused to let fall. Behind her, she heard the soft creak of the wheelchair, then footsteps, real footsteps. Coulson's hands settled on her shoulders, warm and solid. He turned her gently to face him, standing at his full height, no pretense between them. I am sorry, he said quietly. You are right. I should have told you sooner. Should have asked for your thoughts instead of assuming I had to do this alone. Hana looked up at him, seeing genuine regret in his expression. I am not asking you to abandon your plan. I am asking you to trust me enough to help you survive it. I do trust you. Then prove it. Let me be part of this, not just a bystander waiting to see if my mate comes home alive. Coulson cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing away a tear she had not realized had fallen. What do you suggest? I suggest we make them think you are weaker than you are. Let them believe their plan is working. But I go with you to the battle, as Luna. I watch for the betrayal you expect, and when it comes, I am positioned to help. Absolutely not. You could be killed. So could you? Hana countered. But at least together we have a chance. Coulson stared at her for a long moment, emotions flickering across his face. Finally, he nodded slowly. Together, he agreed. But you follow my commands during battle. No exceptions. Agreed. He pulled her into a fierce kiss, one hand tangling in her hair, the other pressing her close. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Coulson rested his forehead against hers. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met, he murmured. And you are the most secretive man I have ever met, Hana replied. We are quite the pair. Yes, Coulson agreed, a smile touching his lips. We are. That night, they made love with new urgency, aware that time was running short. Coulson's hands mapped every inch of her skin, as though memorizing her. Hana committed every sensation to memory, every breath and gasp and whispered word. Afterwards, wrapped in his arms, she felt him press a kiss to her hair. No matter what happens, he said quietly, know that choosing you was the only decision I have never regretted. Hana's throat tightened. Do not talk as though you are saying goodbye. I am not. I am promising that if I survive this, I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of the trust you have placed in me. You are already worthy, Hana whispered. You just need to survive long enough to believe it. Coulson's arms tightened around her, and Hana closed her eyes, sending a silent prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Keep him safe. Keep us both safe. Because she had finally found something worth fighting for, and she would be damned if she let traitors and politics and carefully orchestrated battles take it away. The War Council gathered 3 days later, tension thick enough to choke on. Pack captains stood around a massive table covered in maps, their expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile. Elder Brock presided from one end, Beta Haskins from the other. And in the middle, apparently helpless in his wheelchair, sat Alpha Coulson Turlow. Hannah stood slightly behind, and to Coulson's right, her position marking her as Luna, but giving her clear sightlines to everyone present. She had dressed carefully that morning, choosing practical clothes that would not hinder movement if things went badly. The rogue encampment has completed their fortifications, Haskins announced, pointing to marks on the northern border map. 32 confirmed fighters, possibly more hidden in reserve. They have positioned themselves strategically, controlling the river crossing and the mountain pass. Cutting off our northern trade routes, Captain Cruz Lambert noted, his weathered face grim. Exactly, Brock said, which is why we must strike immediately. Every day we delay costs us resources and makes them stronger. Agreed, Coulson said calmly. We attack in 2 days. I will lead the assault. The reaction was immediate. Several captains exchanged glances, doubt clear on their faces. One younger captain, Blaze Finch, actually stepped forward. Alpha, with all respect, perhaps it would be wiser to... To what? Coulson interrupted, his voice quiet but dangerous. Hide behind my walls while rogues claim my territory? Send others to fight battles I am too weak to face myself? Blaze paled. I meant no disrespect, Alpha, and yet you showed it regardless. Coulson's gaze swept across the assembled captains. I am still your Alpha, still capable of leading this pack. Or do any of you wish to challenge that claim directly? Silence fell. No one met his eyes. The Alpha King's courage is not in question, Brock said smoothly. But tactics must be considered. Perhaps if you coordinated from a secondary position, while Beta Haskins led the initial assault. No, Coulson said flatly. I lead from the front or not at all. Hannah watched the subtle expressions that flickered across Brock's face. Frustration, calculation, and beneath it all, barely concealed satisfaction. He wanted Coulson on that battlefield, wanted him exposed and vulnerable. Then we will require additional support, Haskins said. I suggest the Luna remain here, protected within the palace walls. The Luna goes where I go, Coulson replied before Hannah could speak. But Alpha, that is my final word on the matter. The meeting continued for another hour, discussing troop movements and supply lines. But Hannah noticed how Brock and Haskins kept exchanging glances, how they steered the conversation toward specific tactical choices that would leave Coulson isolated from his most loyal guards. When the council finally dismissed, only Coulson and Hannah remained in the chamber. She moved to his side immediately. They are planning something, she said quietly. During the battle. Yes. I would estimate they will wait until the fighting is most intense, then arrange for rogues to break through directly to my position. You cannot seriously believe you can survive that. Coulson looked up at her, his expression unreadable. I have survived worse. Barely. And you were not in a wheelchair then. I will not be in a wheelchair during the battle either. Hannah's breath caught. You are going to reveal yourself. Only at the critical moment. When they expect me to be most vulnerable, I will stand. It will shock them. Give me the advantage I need to turn their trap back on themselves. And if it does not work, then you will take the evidence I have gathered to the Pack Council and expose them without me. Coulson, promise me, Hannah. If I fall, you will not let them win. You will fight for this pack even if I cannot. She wanted to refuse. Wanted to scream that she would not accept any plan that involved him dying. But she saw the determination in his eyes and knew arguing was useless. I promise, she said finally. But you had better not fall. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. I will do my very best to survive. I have too much to live for now. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Weapons were sharpened, armor checked, supplies packed. Hannah trained with the pack's weapons master, refreshing skills she had not used since she was young. Coulson watched these sessions from his wheelchair, his expression approving. You are good, he observed after she successfully disarmed one of the younger fighters. My father believed every pack member should know how to defend themselves, Hannah replied. breathing hard. Rank did not matter. Survival did. He was a wise man. He was a practical man. There is a difference. The night before battle, Coulson came to their bed later than usual. Hannah had been lying awake, staring at the ceiling, when she heard his footsteps. Not the wheelchair. Footsteps. He undressed silently in the darkness before sliding into bed beside her. His arms wrapped around her immediately, pulling her against his chest. "Cannot sleep?" he asked. "No. You?" "No." They lay in silence, heartbeats synchronizing, breathing matching. Hannah traced the scars on his chest, committing every detail to memory. "I am afraid," she admitted quietly. "So am I. You never show it. Fear is a luxury I cannot afford in front of the pack. But with you?" His hand cupped her face gently. "With you, I can be honest." Hannah turned in his arms, pressing her body against his. "Make love to me. Not frantically or desperately, just slowly. Like we have all the time in the world." Coulson's response was a kiss so tender it made her chest ache. Their coupling that night was different from all the times before. Gentle and thorough, each touch a promise, each movement a vow. Afterwards, Hannah rested her head on his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. "If you die tomorrow," she said, "I will never forgive you. If I die tomorrow, I will deserve your anger. Coulson, I am serious. So am I." He tilted her face up, his eyes intense in the darkness. "I have no intention of dying. I have too much to live for, too much I want to experience with you. But if the worst happens, know that these past weeks with you have been worth everything." Hannah kissed him fiercely, pouring every emotion she could not voice into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both trembling, she pressed her forehead against his. "Come back to me," she whispered. "Promise me you will come back." "I promise," Coulson said. "On my honor as your mate, I promise I will survive this." Morning arrived far too quickly. Hannah dressed in fitted leather armor, practical and flexible. She braided her hair tightly, keeping it away from her face. When she emerged from the bedroom, Coulson was already in his wheelchair, dressed for battle. The illusion was perfect. Weak alpha, barely able to defend himself, being wheeled toward certain death, but Hannah saw the tension in his shoulders, the readiness in his hands, saw the warrior beneath the pretense. "Ready?" he asked. "No," Hannah admitted. "But let us go anyway." The pack assembled in the courtyard, 200 fighters in full battle array. Hannah mounted a horse someone had prepared for her, positioning herself near Coulson's specially designed battle chair. Several guards surrounded them, loyal fighters Coulson trusted completely. Elder Brock and Beta Haskins approached, both armed and armored. "May the ancestors guide your blade, Alpha," Brock said formally. "And yours, Elder," Coulson replied, his tone revealing nothing. They rode north in formation, the morning sun climbing slowly over distant mountains. Hannah's heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Beside her, Coulson remained calm, directing troop movements with quiet authority. The rogue encampment appeared on the horizon as midday approached, exactly as the scouts had described. Fortified positions, strategic placement, prepared for assault. Too prepared, Hannah realized, as though they had known exactly when and how the pack would attack. Coulson raised his hand, halting the advance. Battle formation. Archers to high ground, infantry in center, cavalry on flanks. The pack moved with practiced precision. Hannah noticed how Haskins positioned himself slightly behind Coulson's chair, his hand resting casually on his sword hilt. "Waiting. On my signal," Coulson called. "Hold. Until." He never finished the command. Rogues erupted from concealed positions to their rear, cutting off retreat. At the same moment, the fortified camp opened, rogues pouring out in a coordinated assault. "Trap!" Hannah's mind screamed. Classic pincer movement. But Coulson did not look surprised. He looked vindicated. "Defensive circle," he commanded. "Protect the Luna." Guards immediately surrounded Hannah, cutting off her view. She fought against them, desperate to see Coulson, to know he was safe. "Let me through," she demanded. "Luna, our orders are to protect me, not blind me. Let me see." Reluctantly, the guards parted slightly. Hannah's breath caught at what she saw. Coulson still sat in his wheelchair, apparently helpless. But directly behind him, Haskins had drawn his sword, the blade angled perfectly to drive through Coulson's back. "Now!" Haskins shouted to someone in the chaos. 3 rogues broke through the defensive line, heading straight for Coulson. Haskins stepped back slightly, positioning himself to appear as though he was defending his alpha, while actually leaving Coulson completely exposed. This was it. The moment they had been waiting for. Coulson's hands gripped the wheelchair armrests, and he stood, not carefully, not tentatively. He exploded from the chair in a burst of controlled violence, drawing the sword concealed beneath his cloak in one fluid motion. The first rogue died before anyone realized what had happened, Coulson's blade opening his throat with surgical precision. The second hesitated, confused, and paid for that hesitation with his life. The third rogue turned to flee, but Coulson was faster, his blade finding the space between armor plates with deadly accuracy. Silence crashed across the battlefield. Every fighter, pack and rogue alike, froze in shock. Alpha Coulson Turlo, the broken king everyone had pitied, stood tall and deadly, his sword dripping blood, his expression absolutely feral. "Haskins," Coulson said quietly, "care to explain why you ordered those rogues to attack your alpha?" Haskins's face had gone pale as death. "I did not, I was defending. You were positioning yourself to let them kill me while appearing to help," Coulson interrupted. "A clever plan. But unfortunately for you, I am not nearly as helpless as you believed." "This is madness," Brock shouted, riding forward. "Alpha, you are clearly disoriented from battle. Haskins would never—" "Elder Brock," Coulson cut him off, his voice carrying across the battlefield. "I have evidence of your communications with rogue packs, of your plans to seize control after my convenient death in battle, of resource diversions and power consolidations over the past 6 months." Brock's expression shifted from shock to calculation to cold fury in the space of a heartbeat. "Kill him," he ordered the rogues. "Kill them both. Anyone who wants territory when this is over. Kill the Alpha and his Luna now." Chaos erupted. But this time, Coulson's loyal fighters were ready. They closed ranks around Hannah and Coulson, forming an impenetrable wall of shields and blades. The rogues, realizing they had been betrayed by their supposed allies, began to retreat. And in the center of everything, Coulson Turlo fought like the warrior he had always been, cutting through traitors and rogues with devastating efficiency. Hannah drew her own blade, defending the fighters nearest her, moving with purpose and deadly grace. A rogue broke through toward her, and she pivoted, her blade finding his gut before he could strike. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. When the dust finally settled, bodies littered the ground. Most were rogues, some were pack members who had sided with Brock and Haskins. And kneeling in the blood-soaked dirt, hands bound, were Elder Wesley Brock and Beta Jeremy Haskins. Coulson approached them slowly, his sword still drawn, blood streaking his face and armor. "You attempted to murder your Alpha," he said, his voice carrying to every remaining pack member. "You conspired with rogues to destroy this pack from within. You betrayed everything our ancestors built. You were weak," Brock spat. "The pack needed strong leadership. The pack had strong leadership," Coulson replied. "You simply mistook patience for weakness." He turned to address the assembled fighters. "Let it be known that Elder Wesley Brock and Beta Jeremy Haskins are hereby stripped of rank and title. They will face pack justice for their crimes. Anyone who supported their treason can step forward now and receive mercy, or remain silent and face discovery later with no clemency." 3 pack members stepped forward, their heads bowed. "You will be confined until the council can determine appropriate punishment," Coulson said. "But your honesty today will be remembered." He looked around at the remaining fighters, his gaze fierce and commanding. "I am Alpha Coulson Turlo. I have ruled this pack through strength and strategy, through patience and preparation. The wheelchair was armor, protection against those who would strike only at perceived weakness. But make no mistake, I have never been weak, and I never will be. A roar went up from the pack, fighters saluting their alpha with renewed devotion. Hana moved to Coulson's side, her heart still racing, blood pumping hot through her veins. He looked down at her, and despite the violence and chaos surrounding them, his expression softened. "You fought well," he said. "So did you." His hand found hers, squeezing gently. Around them, the pack began the grim work of tending wounded and gathering the dead. But for just a moment, Coulson and Hana stood together, survivors of a trap designed to kill them both. "It is over," Hana said quietly. "No," Coulson replied. "It is only beginning." But his smile, small and genuine, told her he was ready for whatever came next, and so was she. The aftermath of battle brought bureaucracy and political maneuvering that Hana found almost more exhausting than the fighting itself. The Pack Council convened 3 times in the following week, each session longer than the last, as they worked through the implications of Brock and Haskins's betrayal. Coulson attended every meeting standing, the wheelchair abandoned like the deception it had always been. Some council members seemed genuinely relieved. Others appeared uncomfortable, as though they had grown used to underestimating their alpha and did not know how to adjust. Hana stood beside him as always, but her role had shifted. Where before she had been quiet and observant, now she spoke when she saw fit, offering perspectives that Coulson welcomed and the council grudgingly acknowledged. "The Luna has a point," Elder Gregory Mills admitted during one particularly contentious debate about border security. "If we increase patrols only on the northern border, we simply invite attack elsewhere." It was the closest thing to an apology Hana suspected she would ever receive from Gregory, and she accepted it with a gracious nod. The trial of Brock and Haskins came 10 days after the battle. The entire pack gathered to hear evidence and witness justice. Coulson presented his case methodically, producing communications between Brock and various rogue packs, financial records showing diverted resources, testimony from pack members who had witnessed suspicious activities. The evidence was damning. Brock attempted to argue that he had been trying to protect the pack from a weak leader. Haskins claimed he had been following orders. Neither defense held up under scrutiny. The council's verdict was unanimous: exile. Brock and Haskins would be stripped of all rank, all property, all connection to the pack. They would be escorted to the border and released with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Hana watched as the 2 men were led away, their expressions ranging from defiant to broken. She felt no satisfaction in their punishment, only relief that the threat had been neutralized. "You are too merciful," Coulson said quietly beside her. "You think they should have been executed?" "I think they tried to kill us both. Death would have been justice." "Exile is worse," Hana replied. "Death is quick, but living with the knowledge that they lost everything, that their betrayal was exposed and punished, that they will spend the rest of their lives as outcasts, that is true suffering." Coulson studied her thoughtfully. "You are more ruthless than you appear, Luna. I learned from my mate." His smile was quick and genuine. "Indeed you did." Life settled into new routines over the following weeks. Coulson ruled openly now, his strength no longer hidden. He trained with the pack warriors, re-establishing dominance through both skill and strategy. Pack members who had doubted his capability found themselves convinced otherwise when he disarmed them in sparring matches or outmaneuvered them in tactical exercises. But Hana noticed changes beyond the obvious. Coulson smiled more frequently, laughed more easily. The weight he had carried, the constant vigilance required to maintain his deception, had lifted. One evening, nearly a month after the battle, Hana found him in the garden where they had first spoken of his secret. He sat on a bench near the fountain, his face tilted toward the fading sunlight. "You look peaceful," she observed, settling beside him. "I feel peaceful," Coulson admitted. "For the first time in months, I can simply exist without calculating every move, every word, every gesture. Do you miss it? The game? No, but I learned valuable lessons from it. Such as?" That appearing weak can be as powerful as being strong. That patience is often more effective than immediate action. That the people who stand beside you, when you appear broken, are worth more than all the warriors who only respect strength. Hana leaned against his shoulder. And have you found such people? I found one, Coulson said, his arm coming around her waist. She stood beside a king in a wheelchair and never once treated him as less than he was. She chose to stay when anyone sensible would have fled. She fought battles she did not have to fight, and kept secrets that could have bought her freedom. She sounds impressive, Hana said lightly. She is extraordinary. Coulson turned to face her fully. And I do not tell her that often enough. Hana's throat tightened. You tell me every day. Maybe not with words, but with every choice you make. Every time you trust me with truth instead of pretty lies. I want to give you more than trust and truth, Coulson said seriously. I want to give you the life you should have had. Not a forced marriage to a broken king, but real partnership, real choice. I have that already. Do you? His expression grew troubled. You never had the option to refuse this bond, to choose me freely. Hana pulled back slightly, studying his face. Is this about guilt? Perhaps. I used you as part of my deception, allowed you to be placed in danger, forced you into intimacy before you were truly ready. Stop, Hana said firmly. You did not force me into anything. Yes, the elders arranged our marriage. Yes, circumstances were not ideal. But every choice after that first night has been mine. I chose to stay. I chose to fight beside you. I chose to trust you with my life. But if you could go back, I would make the same choices, Hana interrupted. Because they led me here, to you, to a partnership I never expected but would not trade for anything. Coulson's hand rose to cup her face. You humble me. Good. Your ego could use occasional humbling. His laugh was quiet and genuine. I love you. The words hung between them, simple and absolute. Hana's breath caught, her heart expanding in her chest. Say it again, she whispered. I love you, Coulson repeated, his gaze intense. I have loved you since you beat me at chess and smiled like you had conquered kingdoms. I have loved you since you knelt beside my wheelchair and told me you saw the truth. I have loved you through deception and battle and every moment in between. Tears pricked Hana's eyes. I love you too. I did not want to, did not plan to. But somewhere between forced marriage and political games, you became the person I trust most in this world. Coulson kissed her then, tender and thorough, pouring emotion into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both smiling, the sun had fully set, leaving them in twilight. Come with me, Coulson said, standing and offering his hand. Hana took it without hesitation. He led her through the garden to a section she had not explored before, where ancient trees formed a natural canopy above a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a stone altar, weathered with age. This is where my parents were mated, Coulson explained, where my grandparents before them exchanged vows. Every Alpha and Luna of our line has stood here. It is beautiful, Hana breathed. Our mating was forced, performed under political pressure in a chamber designed to witness obligation rather than love. Coulson turned to face her fully. I cannot give you back the choice that was taken, but I can offer you a new choice now. Hana's pulse quickened. What are you asking? Mate with me again, here, now, with no witnesses except the moon and stars. Not because elders demand it or politics require it, but because we choose each other freely. Tears spilled over, tracking down Hana's cheeks. Yes. Coulson pulled her close, his hand tangling in her hair. Under the light of the ancestors, I choose you, Hana Bridges. As my mate, my Luna, my partner in all things. I vow to trust you with truth, to stand beside you in strength and weakness, to honor the choice you make in loving me. Hana pressed her hands against his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her palms. Under the light of the ancestors, I choose you, Coulson Turlow. As my mate, my alpha, my partner in all things, I vow to see you clearly, to stand beside you in deception and revelation, to honor the man you are and the man you are becoming. Magic sparked between them, the bond that had been forged in obligation reforming itself in love. Hannah gasped as power flooded through her, not forced or political, but pure and chosen. Coulson lifted her easily, carrying her to the base of the altar where soft grass grew. He laid her down gently, following her down until his weight pressed her into the earth. "I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of this," he said against her throat. "You already are," Hannah replied, pulling him closer. "You already are." Their coupling was slow and reverent, each touch a promise, each movement a vow renewed. When they finally shattered together, crying out into the night, Hannah felt the bond solidify completely, no longer forced or political but chosen and sacred. Afterwards, they lay tangled together beneath the stars. Coulson's cloak spread over them both. "I have a gift for you," he said eventually. "You already gave me yourself. What more could I need?" "This," Coulson said, producing a small carved box from his pocket. Hannah sat up, accepting the box with trembling hands. Inside, nestled on black velvet, lay a pendant, silver shaped like a wolf in mid-leap, its eyes set with tiny amber stones that matched Coulson's eyes. "It was my mother's," he explained. "She wore it every day until she died. My father gave it to her on their mating night, the real mating night after the political ceremony. I want you to have it. Coulson, I cannot this should go to your children. To our children," he corrected. "And they will value it because it belonged to their mother. But right now, it belongs to you." Hannah lifted the pendant from the box, the silver cool against her skin. Coulson fastened it around her neck, his fingers gentle on her throat. "Perfect," he said, studying how it lay against her collarbones. Hannah touched the pendant, feeling the weight of history and promise combined. "Thank you. For this. For everything." "Thank you," Coulson replied, "for choosing to stay, for seeing me when I could not see myself, for being brave enough to love a man everyone believed was broken." "You were never broken," Hannah said. "Just careful. There is a difference." His smile was radiant. "Yes, there is." They returned to the palace as the moon climbed higher, walking hand in hand through gardens that no longer felt like a prison but like home. In their chambers, they made love again, slower this time, learning each other with renewed dedication. And afterwards, as Hannah drifted toward sleep in Coulson's arms, she felt complete in a way she never had before. "Hannah," Coulson murmured against her hair. "Yes? When you walked into that mating chamber all those weeks ago, what did you think would happen?" Hannah considered the question carefully. "I thought I would survive. That is all I ever allowed myself to hope for. And now? Now I believe I will thrive." She felt Coulson smile against her hair. "Yes, we both will." The next morning, they woke tangled together, sunlight streaming through windows that faced east. Coulson's hand traced lazy patterns on Hannah's hip, his expression content. "We should address the pack today," he said eventually. "Formally introduce you as Luna, not as a political arrangement, but as my chosen mate. They already know. They know you stood beside me during battle. They know you fought well, but they do not know how essential you are to me. How much I rely on your judgment and trust your counsel. That changes today." Hannah turned to face him fully. "You do not have to do this. I do not need public declaration. I know, but I need to give it. For myself as much as for you." The pack gathering that afternoon was larger than any Hannah had attended before. Every member who could walk assembled in the great courtyard, their faces curious and expectant. Coulson stood on the raised platform where alphas had addressed their packs for generations. Hannah stood beside him, wearing the pendant his mother had worn, her hand clasped in his. "I stand before you today not as the alpha you pitied, but as the leader you deserve," Coulson began, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Many of you believed I was broken. Some of you thought I was weak. The wheelchair became a symbol of everything this pack feared losing: silence, absolute attention. But weakness is not physical. It is not injury or limitation or the need to adapt. True weakness is the inability to recognize strength in unexpected forms. His hand tightened on Hannah's. Luna Hannah Bridges stood beside me when I appeared at my weakest. She did not pity me, did not dismiss me. She saw me clearly, all of me, and chose to stay. She fought beside me in battle. She kept secrets that could have bought her freedom. She trusted me when trust was the most dangerous choice she could make. Coulson turned to face Hannah fully. You are my mate not because elders decreed it, but because I choose you. Every day, every moment, you make me stronger not by ignoring my limitations, but by respecting them while seeing past them. He addressed the pack again. This woman is your Luna. Honor her as you would honor me. Protect her as you would protect your alpha. And know that any insult to her is an insult to me personally. The pack erupted in cheers, fists raised in salute. Hannah felt emotion tightening her throat, overwhelming and perfect. Coulson pulled her into a kiss, public and claiming and absolutely certain. When they broke apart, both smiling, the pack's cheers intensified. You are incorrigible, Hannah murmured against his mouth. You love me anyway. Yes, I do. Life settled into new rhythms over the following months. Hannah took on more responsibilities as Luna, working with pack members to resolve disputes and improve systems. Coulson ruled with renewed confidence, his deception abandoned, but the lessons learned from it applied to every decision. They continued their nightly chess games, the win-loss record nearly even. They walked in the gardens, where Coulson had first revealed his truth. They made love with passion that never seemed to fade, always discovering new ways to connect. And when Hannah realized she was pregnant, 3 months after the battle, she felt no fear, only anticipation. She told Coulson in the garden, near the fountain where so much had changed between them. I am carrying our child, she said simply. Coulson froze, his expression shifting through shock, joy, fear, and fierce protectiveness in rapid succession. Are you certain? The healers confirmed it this morning. He swept her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. A child. We are having a child. Are you happy? Hannah asked, though she could feel his joy through their bond. Happy does not begin to describe it. Coulson pulled back enough to cup her face. Terrified, yes. Overwhelmed, absolutely. But happy beyond measure. Me too. Their child was born on the first day of spring, 7 months later. A daughter with Coulson's dark eyes and Hannah's delicate features. They named her Luna, after the title that had brought her parents together, and the moon that had witnessed their true mating. Standing in their chambers, watching Coulson hold their daughter with hands that were infinitely gentle despite their warrior's strength, Hannah felt her heart expand beyond what she thought possible. She is perfect, Coulson breathed, his finger tracing their daughter's tiny hand. She is ours, Hannah corrected. That makes her perfect by default. Coulson looked up at her, love shining in his eyes. Thank you. For her, for choosing me, for standing beside a broken king and helping him remember he was never truly broken at all. Hannah crossed to them both, wrapping her arms around her family. Thank you for giving me choices when I had none, for trusting me with truth, for loving me fiercely enough to fight for both of us. Little Luna yawned, her tiny face scrunching adorably. Outside their window, the pack celebrated the birth of their newest member, voices raised in songs of welcome. And in the quiet of their chambers, two people who had been forced together by politics and circumstance held the evidence of a love that had grown despite every obstacle. I love you, Coulson said, pressing a kiss to Hannah's hair while cradling their daughter. I love you too, Hannah replied. Always. It was not the ending either of them had expected when Hannah walked that long corridor toward an uncertain fate, but it was exactly the ending they both deserved. If you want more stories of forced marriages that become real love, of broken kings who are stronger than they appear, of women who choose strength over survival, make sure you are subscribed to Ariel Romance Library, because some bonds are forged in obligation, but the strongest bonds are chosen in love. And that choice makes all the difference.